Welcome back, music fans, to our next thrilling installment of Music of Indonesia. Tonight we'll focus primarily on the gamelan, which is the Indonesian orchestra and the instruments that make it up. Obviously, as you look through here, you'll see that some of these instruments are not what you would consider portable. In fact, the orchestra, the gamelan, stays put wherever it is, and people come to it to play and to listen to it. So let's begin now to look at the other pieces of the gamelan and information leading up to that. As we said in the other installment, even though Indonesia is majority Muslim, there are strong Hindu remnants still that permeate very much all of society, and that's true in the music. In fact, the gamelan are considered to have spiritual qualities. People do not step over an instrument. That would not be a good thing to do. When new instruments are dedicated, offerings are given to them. And I read of one instance where there was somebody that was playing a gamelan in some part of it, and he wasn't particularly pleased with the way it sounded. One of the locals suggested he make an offering to it, and just out of following their advice, he did, and was surprised to hear that it sounded different after he did that. So again, spirituality permeates all of this. Indonesians prize two qualities, or at least they prize one of them. It's called alus, which could be translated as refined. The opposite of that is kasar, which often translates to coarse. This concept of alus, or refinement, even when they are with each other, they will not come out and ask somebody for something. They will make hints around and then expect the other person to pick up on that and provide what they need. So definitely not like our Western directness. One reason it's important, especially for music students, to learn about the gamelan is because of the impression it made on a French composer named Claude Debussy. In 1889, to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution, they had a Paris exposition, which was sort of a world fair with displays from many cultures around the world, including an exhibit by Indonesia, which included a gamelan. Debussy heard it and was fascinated by the sound. He tried to recreate his impressions of that in a piano piece called Pagodas, and then just the general blurriness of the music, the reflective quality, influenced him greatly and other French composers as well. In fact, even later, if you happen to listen to a piano concerto for two pianos by Francis Poulenc, if you listen to the very beginning of the second movement, it sounds to me always like a gamelan. So the opening of gamelan compositions uses an introduction called the buka, which unfolds the mode and character of a piece. If that sounds familiar, that's kind of like what happened with the taksim in the Middle East and the elap in the Indian music. The drummer is the conductor who sets the tempo, and the gongs mark the ends of various sections and tell everybody where they are and what they should be doing. The gamelan features instruments that are soft as well as loud instruments, and their sections contrast the qualities of those. Pieces can last up to 30 minutes, but 15 minutes is common, so overall not nearly as long as some of the compositions in India or the Middle East. And again, the gongs are the timekeepers and tell everybody what's going on. The instrumentation of the gamelan is not necessarily fixed. It may vary depending on the area and what the event is. Instruments are built in sets. That is, they are not interchangeable, so you can't swap out an instrument from one with another, although there are a few, like the rebab, that probably could go from one place to the next. As you know from your vocabulary list, that they have pairs of instruments in pelog and slendro, which have to do with the number of tones and the tuning as well. And the instruments from the different sets of pelog and slendro, they may have two sets there at the same time and place, but they would never be played at the same time. There are a group of melody instruments in the gamelan, and oddly enough, they are not necessarily the loudest ones. Part of that subtlety, I guess. A lot of the techniques involved in gamelan instrument playing make me think of playing handbells, in that they're made out of bronze and often require damping as well as ringing. And this video, this link, you'll see the saron and how it's played. The slintum is the bass member of the gander family. It's played with a single padded mallet, and there's a very brief video here for you to watch. Notice how they put in the video the numbers, the pitch numbers, as the man is playing them. And you'll see one with an apostrophe. That means that's an octave higher than the lower one. If you remember in Indian notation, they had dots below or above the syllable that indicated whether it was a lower octave or an upper octave. One of the main instruments is the gander. It's a metallophone with a tube resonator. Now, metallophone is a subset of idiophones. It's not another category. It belongs in that category. This particular video will show you that there's a method to holding the mallets in order to be able to dampen the bars as well. Also notice on the player's side of the bars, there's some small dots there, and I suspect they indicate the pitch or pitch number. The bonang is a type of gong that's played horizontally. It sits in a frame that has strings underneath the gongs so that they can vibrate when struck. And they come in three different sizes, a low, middle, and a high pitch, played with stick mallets in each hand. In this video, watch how, if I were doing it, I would have had all the ones in a row, twos in a row, threes in a row, etc. And they've got them on opposite ends. So the sixes are on the outsides and the ones are the outsides. In this particular performance, this player is only playing ever the same octave, only playing the ones, the twos, the threes. He's never playing two different numbers at the same time. And just thought that's interesting. If this instrument looks familiar to you, that's good. You should have noticed that from the Middle Eastern rubab that we have looked at before. The rubab could have more than, it could have a number of strings, but here in Indonesia, it says it has two strings, but actually it's just one string that's strung from top to bottom and back up again. Notice how large the tuning pegs are on the Indonesian rubab. The gambang is a wooden xylophone with a box resonator. As I have seen in many other instruments, it's played in parallel octaves. In the example you're about to see, you may occasionally hear a harmony note, but I don't think that's intended. This is, again, xylophone is an idiophone, so we might want to remember that. The tselempung is a large plucked zither that makes it a chordophone. And again, it is tunable, so I suppose one could go from one gamelan set to another. The suling is also a melody elaborating instrument, and by that I assume, like we heard in Indian music and even in Middle Eastern music, how many instrumentalists might be playing the same melody but making slight variations on it. It is an indblown flute, like the ney in the Middle East. This video you're about to watch is kind of long. You can watch as much of it as you want to, but I'd suggest cutting out at about the 47-second mark. The kinong are basically made the same as the bonang. They're just much larger. They perform different functions depending upon the mode or the style of music that's being played. They anticipate the melody and help the players know where the various sections are. I forgot to say that this section deals with colatomic instruments. Again, these are instruments that help the gamelan players know the various sections. of when to go on to something new, basically to keep the structure. And they come in the gongs, various sizes of small and very large. The kimpul are the small ones. There's usually one for each pitch in the tuning system. This particular video will show you both gong ageng and kimpul, but I've got another video I'd like for you to see about gong ageng specifically in the next one. This next video deals specifically with the gong ageng. It's the largest gong, and it's the most important instrument, which seems odd to us because it's probably played least than any of the other instruments. The man in this video says some very interesting information about it. He's going to start at the beginning of the video explaining the gambang. If you want to watch that, that's fine. If not, skip to about the 54-second mark and watch till about 1 minute and 46 seconds to get what he has to say about gong ageng. There are drums used with the gamelan. They are called kendang. Smaller one is called ketipung, and the larger is gendang gending. It appears that the ketipung is played most often, and I guess that the larger drum, the gendang gending, is used somewhat like the larger gong and only plays a little less often. This video is a little long. Just watch as much as you like. So that is the instruments of the gamelan. You may have noticed through the course of the videos that sometimes some of the instruments had numbers marked on them. There was at least one I saw somewhere that actually had note names, B flat, C, D, F, etc. I suspect that if you see something like that, they're probably tuned to Western tuning, unlike the others. This last video, I think, is a very entertaining way to get a good review of all the instruments. The fellow explains things very clearly, and then by the end of it, he's playing like a one-man 16-frame. He's playing everything at once. So I hope you enjoyed that. When you're through with this, just click on to the next one, and we're done for this installation, or this installment.
That's all, folks.